I was 23, working my way through college with 3 jobs while maintaining a 4-point GPA. My parents always preached fairness, but clearly favored my younger brother Jake. Despite struggling to pay tuition, I still contributed to household expenses. Then came the ultimatum that would change everything. They looked me straight in the eye and said, "Either you support your brother's future, or you move out." I made my choice that night. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button, and buckle up, because this family drama gets intense. Our family lived in a small town in Oregon where everyone knew each other and gossip traveled fast. My parents, Frank and Sandra, both worked steady jobs at the local manufacturing plant. They made enough for us to live comfortably in our modest 3-bedroom house, but there was never much extra for luxuries or savings. As the firstborn, I learned responsibility early. By 16, I was working summers and weekends at the local grocery store, saving most of my earnings for college. My parents had started a small college fund for me, but we all knew it would only cover a fraction of the costs. My brother Jake was born when I was 5. From the beginning, there was something different about how my parents treated him. Where I faced strict curfews and chore schedules, Jake received second chances and lighter responsibilities. I told myself this was normal, that parents learn to relax with the second child. Through high school, I pushed myself to excel. The guidance counselor told me I had a shot at scholarships if I maintained perfect grades while participating in extracurriculars. So I joined debate club, volunteered at the library, and still kept my part-time job. The work paid off when I received a partial scholarship to State University. Even with the scholarship and my savings, college was expensive. I took out student loans, but I was determined to graduate with minimal debt. This meant working throughout college, often juggling multiple jobs. Despite this, I still sent money home monthly to help with household expenses, seeing it as my responsibility to the family. During my junior year, Jake was finishing high school. Unlike me, he coasted through with B's and C's, spent most evenings playing video games, and showed little interest in part-time work or saving for college. My parents never pushed him the way they had pushed me. "Jake just needs to find his passion," my mother would say when I questioned the double standard. "Not everyone is as naturally disciplined as you, Dion." I started noticing more signs of the imbalance when I came home for breaks. Jake had the newest smartphone while I was still using a 3-year-old model with a cracked screen. He drove my parents' newer car while I relied on public transportation, or my ancient Honda that constantly needed repairs. What bothered me most was not the material differences, but the expectation gap. No one asked Jake to contribute to household expenses or even help much with chores. Meanwhile, my parents still called me when they needed extra money for unexpected bills, which I provided from my tight budget because family was supposed to help family. During winter break of my junior year, I discovered something that shook my trust in my parents. I was looking for some tax documents in my father's home office when I found statements for my college fund. As I reviewed them, my blood ran cold. There had been significant withdrawals over the past 2 years, nearly depleting what should have been there for my senior year. That evening, I confronted my parents at the kitchen table after Jake had gone to a friend's house. "What happened to my college fund?" I asked, placing the statements on the table. My father shifted uncomfortably. "We had some unexpected expenses, Dion. We meant to replace it." "What expenses?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice even. My mother jumped in. "Medical bills, car, repairs, the roof last year. You know how tight things have been." But as they talked, I noticed they avoided meeting my eyes. Later that week, I noticed Jake sporting expensive new gaming equipment. When I asked where it came from, he casually mentioned it was an early graduation present from our parents. I swallowed my hurt and told myself that I was capable enough to manage without the fund. I would take extra shifts, maybe delay graduation by a semester if necessary. I had always been the responsible one, the problem solver. I could handle this too, but deep down something had changed. I began to see my parents' actions more clearly, without the filter of unconditional trust. I was being used as a financial backup while Jake received the benefits of our parents' resources and attention. Still, I tried to rationalize their behavior. Maybe they really believed I was strong enough to handle these challenges while Jake needed more support. I returned to campus with a heavier heart, but more determination than ever to create a future that depended on no one but myself. Spring semester of my junior year, I received a call from my excited mother. Jake had been accepted to Westridge University, a private school known for its business program and hefty price tag. She was calling to invite me home for a celebration dinner that weekend. I made the 3-hour drive home after my Friday classes, arriving just in time for my mother's pot roast, Jake's favorite. The dining room had been decorated with blue and gold streamers, Westridge colors. A congratulations banner hung over the table. "There he is," my father called as I walked in. He patted me on the back, but quickly returned his attention to Jake, who was showing him something on the acceptance letter. Throughout dinner, the conversation revolved entirely around Jake's achievement and his future at Westridge. No one asked about my classes or my upcoming exams. "Westridge has connections to all the top companies," my father said proudly. "Their graduates start at salaries most people never see. The campus is beautiful too," my mother added. "The dorms are practically apartments." I nodded and offered the expected congratulations while silently calculating tuition rates in my head. Westridge cost more than triple what I was paying at State. As dessert was served, my father cleared his throat. "We need to discuss the financial aspects," he said. "Westridge is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Jake, but it comes with a price tag." My mother reached for his hand. "We have been looking at our options. We can remortgage the house to cover some costs, but we will all need to make sacrifices." The way they both glanced at me made it clear who would be making the biggest sacrifice. "We were hoping you could contribute more to the household, Dion," my father continued, "and maybe help directly with Jake's expenses." I put down my fork. "How much are you thinking?" The number they mentioned would consume nearly 60% of my income, not counting the money I already gave them monthly. "I am already working 3 jobs while taking full course loads," I said carefully. "I have my own tuition to cover plus rent, food, and my student loans are already piling up." "But you are almost finished," my mother pointed out. "Jake is just starting. This is his future we are talking about." "What about my future?" I asked. "I still have a year left, plus I was planning to apply for graduate programs." My father's expression hardened. "Sometimes we have to put family first, Dion. We have always given you everything you needed." The unfairness of this statement struck me like a physical blow. "I have put in the work to earn scholarships and pay my own way," I said. "I have sent money home every month, even when I could barely afford ramen for dinner." "Are you keeping score?" my mother asked, her voice taking on a wounded tone. "Family helps family. We would do the same for you." But I knew that was not true. They had already proven otherwise by emptying my college fund. "Jake has a real chance here," my father insisted. "His business degree from Westridge will set him up for life. You are already on your path." "A path I carved out myself," I replied, feeling my temper rising. "I worked for my scholarships, my jobs, my grades. Why cannot Jake do the same?" Jake, who had been silently watching this exchange, looked down at his plate. "Not everyone is like you, Dion," my mother said. "Jake has different strengths." "Different strengths or different expectations?" I asked. "He has never had a job. His grades are average at best. Why does he deserve a $100,000 education that we all have to pay for?" My father's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes jump. "That is enough. This is not a negotiation. This is what the family needs right now. Either you support your brother's future, or you need to find somewhere else to live when you are not at school." I stared at him in shock, waiting for my mother to intervene to moderate as she usually did. Instead, she nodded in agreement. "We are all making sacrifices, Dion. This is yours." Jake remained silent, examining his dessert with sudden interest. Not once did he offer to compromise to consider a less expensive school or to work part-time to contribute. I excused myself from the table and went to my old room, now partially converted to store my mother's craft supplies. As I sat on my bed, the reality of the situation sank in. My parents were not asking me to help. They were demanding I sacrifice my own future for Jake's, and if I refused, I would lose my family. I spent the night weighing my options, torn between family loyalty and self-preservation. The next morning I called my best friend Adam, who had been my roommate freshman year before he moved in with his girlfriend. "They cannot be serious," he said after hearing the story. "That is financial abuse, man." I also sought advice from Professor Winters, my academic advisor, who had taken an interest in my future. "Sometimes the hardest decisions are between bad options," she told me. "But your education and financial stability are not chess pieces for your parents to sacrifice." I did the math repeatedly. Even with maximum student loans and more work hours, I could not support myself through graduate school while also funding Jake's education. And even if I could, what message would that send? That I would always be the family bank. While Jake received the benefits, the pain of realizing your family does not value your efforts, the same way they value your siblings' potential, is indescribable. It is like discovering the foundation of your house was never concrete but sand. Everything I thought I understood about family obligation shifted that weekend. By Sunday morning I had made my decision. I would preserve my dignity and my future, even if it meant leaving home behind. The following weekend I returned home with empty storage bins borrowed from friends. My parents watched from the living room as I packed my childhood belongings, family photos, and the few pieces of furniture that were truly mine. "You are being dramatic," my father said, arms crossed. "You will come to your senses." My mother's approach was softer, but no less manipulative. "Think about what this will do to Jake. He looks up to you." I glanced at Jake, who was hovering in the doorway of my room. "Does he?" "He has not said a word about any of this." Jake shuffled his feet. "I did not ask them to make you pay for my college," he muttered. "No, but you are not refusing their offer either," I pointed out. "You could go to state like me, get scholarships, work part-time." "That is not what we decided," my father interjected. "You decided," I corrected him. "Not me." My mother tried one last approach as I loaded the final box into my car. "Family should stick together through hard times. Your grandparents would be so disappointed." The mention of my grandparents, who had passed years ago, but had always treated me with genuine love and fairness, was the final straw. "Grandpa taught me that respect is earned, not demanded," I said. "And Grandma always said never to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." I am following their advice. I drove away with my rearview mirror full of my childhood home, and my parents standing in the driveway, still convinced I would eventually give in. They did not know that their ultimatum had broken something fundamental in our relationship, something that could never be repaired in quite the same way. Adam and his girlfriend Kayla welcomed me to their spare room. "Stay as long as you need," they offered, helping me unload. "We have plenty of space." Those first few weeks were a blur of exhaustion and adjustment. I picked up extra shifts at the campus bookstore and started a new job delivering food on weekends. Between classes, work, and adjusting to my new living situation, I barely had time to process the emotional fallout. My phone filled with text messages from my mother, alternating between guilt trips and practical questions about when I would come to my senses. My father called only once to inform me that they were moving forward with remortgaging the house for Jake's tuition, clearly expecting this news would change my mind. Most painful were the occasional messages from Jake. "Mom cried all weekend," or "Dad is working overtime now." Never acknowledgments of his role in the situation or offers to compromise. After a month of this emotional warfare, I made the difficult decision to block their numbers temporarily. I needed mental space to focus on finals and securing my future. I told myself it would just be for a few weeks, but those weeks turned into months, as I found peace in the absence of their manipulation. My first Thanksgiving away from family was the hardest. Adam and Kayla invited me to join them at her parents' house, where I put on a brave face but felt the absence of my own family traditions acutely. Christmas brought another invitation, this time from Professor Winters, who seemed to understand more than she said about family estrangements. "Family is not just blood," she told me over holiday dinner with her partner and their friends. "Sometimes it is the people who show up for you when blood relations cannot or will not." I began to build a network of support that had nothing to do with obligation or last names. Classmates became study. Partners became friends. My boss at the bookstore became a mentor. I joined a hiking group where no one knew my history, where I could just be Dion, not the responsible son or the family disappointment. Still, there were moments when the isolation hit hard. A classmate complained about parental expectations, and I remained silent, unable to relate to having parents who cared enough to have expectations at all anymore. Or when administrative forms asked for emergency contacts and I hesitated over who to list. But it was a stormy night in March, right before a crucial midterm in my advanced analytics class, when I hit true rock bottom. My car, the ancient Honda that had survived so far on prayers and duct tape, finally gave out completely. Smoke billowed from under the hood as I pulled to the side of the road miles from campus or home in a downpour that reduced visibility to mere feet. I called roadside assistance only to learn there would be a 3-hour wait due to multiple accidents. The tow would cost more than I had in my checking account. My textbook and notes for tomorrow's exam were soaked, despite my efforts to protect them, and for the first time I had no family safety net to call upon. Sitting in my dead car listening to rain hammer the roof, I broke down completely. I questioned every decision that had led to this moment of complete aloneness. Was my pride worth this struggle? Would it have been simpler to give in to play along with my parents' demands? Until I graduated, I cried until I had no tears left, releasing months of pent-up grief and anger. Then, as the storm outside began to subside, something shifted inside me. This moment, this rock bottom, would become the foundation for something new. I pulled out my soggy notebook and by the light of my phone began to write. Not study notes, but a 5-year plan. Where I wanted to be, what I needed to do to get there, and what support I would need to build along the way. I would graduate with honors. I would find a job in tech that valued my skills. I would build financial security no one could threaten. I would create boundaries that protected my peace. Somehow the roadside assistance came earlier than expected. The mechanic took pity on me and charged only the minimum fee to tow my car to a nearby garage. A fellow student from my statistics class happened to drive by and offered me a ride to campus. Small kindnesses that reminded me I was not entirely alone. I took the midterm the next day on zero sleep, but with a new clarity. My professor noticed my exhaustion and offered an extension which I declined. This challenge, like all the others, would not defeat me. Success is the best revenge became my mantra not because I wanted to hurt my family, but because I needed to prove to myself that their lack of faith in me was misplaced. Every obstacle became fuel for my determination. Every small victory became evidence that I had made the right choice in preserving my dignity and future. The next 2 years transformed me completely. I graduated with highest honors my name called to applause. I had earned entirely on my own merit. I accepted a position at a tech company in Seattle, starting at a salary that exceeded what both my parents made combined. The distance helped. 300 miles between us meant no accidental run-ins at the grocery store, no local gossip making its way back to me. I allowed myself to focus entirely on building my new life. My career advanced steadily as I poured the same determination that got me through college into my professional development. By my 27th birthday, I had received 2 promotions and was leading my own team. My financial situation stabilized enough to purchase a small but modern condo overlooking the city. Meanwhile, I built what Professor Winters had called my chosen family. Adam and Kayla remained close friends, even after their eventual breakup. I formed deep connections with colleagues who shared my interests and values. And most significantly, I met Jessica at a company volunteer event. Jessica understood family complexity in ways others could not. Raised by her grandparents after her parents' addiction issues made them unable to care for her, she recognized the signs of family trauma without me having to explain. "You flinch when your phone rings unexpectedly," she noted on our 3rd date. "And you apologize for needing basic things." Her observation helped me recognize patterns I had not noticed in myself. With her encouragement, I started therapy, slowly unpacking the complex emotions around my family estrangement. Not to fix what had been broken, but to ensure I did not carry those patterns forward. Through it all, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Occasional holiday cards or brief replies to the increasingly infrequent messages from my mother. Jake had dropped out of Westridge after 3 semesters, apparently deciding business was not for him after all. This news came through a distant cousin's social media post, not directly from my family. I had nearly reached the 5-year mark of my impromptu car breakdown plan when an unexpected email arrived in my inbox. It was from my mother's sister, Aunt Paula, who had always kept a polite distance from family drama. "I am not sure if you are aware of your parents' situation," her message began, "but things have taken a difficult turn. Your father has been experiencing health problems and they lost the house last month. Jake's business venture failed, and they invested quite a bit in it." She went on to explain that my parents were currently staying with her temporarily but needed more permanent arrangements. "Your mother asked me to reach out," she concluded. "They are too proud to contact you directly, but they could use your help." My first reaction was a complicated mix of vindication and concern. After 10 years of minimal contact, after being thrown out for refusing to sacrifice my future for Jake's, now they needed my help. The irony was not lost on me. I showed the email to Jessica, now my fiancée, expecting her to share my indignation. "What are you going to do?" she asked instead. "Nothing," I replied immediately. "They made their choice 10 years ago." She took my hand. "That is certainly an option, and valid given your history. But is it what you want to do, or just what you think you should do based on principle?" Her question stayed with me for days. What did I want? The hurt 18-year-old in me wanted them to suffer the consequences of their choices. The successful adult I had become had nothing to prove anymore. And somewhere deeper, a part of me still longed for resolution, if not reconciliation. After much deliberation, I replied to Aunt Paula, asking for more details and suggesting a meeting. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in a cafe in my hometown, waiting for the family I had not seen in a decade. They were 15 minutes late, which gave me time to steady my nerves and observe their approach through the window. My parents had aged dramatically. My father walked with a slight limp, his once robust frame now thin and stooped. My mother's hair had gone completely gray, and deep lines framed her eyes and mouth. Jake, now 28, followed behind them, looking uncomfortable and out of place. "Dion," my mother said as they reached the table, her voice catching. "You look so well." It was surreal, this meeting of past and present. We exchanged awkward pleasantries, commenting on the weather and the changes to the town. Then my father, never one for small talk, got to the point. "I imagine your aunt told you about our situation," he said, his voice lacking the authority it once held. I nodded. "She mentioned you lost the house and had some health issues." "Heart problems," he confirmed. "Cannot work anymore. The medical bills piled up, and then Jake's restaurant did not work out." Jake shifted in his seat. "The location was bad," he muttered, "and the economy tanked." "They invested everything," my mother added. "We thought it would secure all our futures." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "So what exactly are you asking from me?" They exchanged glances. "We need help getting back on our feet," my father said finally. "A loan, maybe. Or, we know you have that big place in Seattle now. You want to move in with me," I clarified, keeping my tone neutral. "Just until we find something," my mother rushed to add. "We would not be a burden." There it was. After 10 years, after the ultimatum that changed our family forever, they were now asking for exactly what they had refused to give me: support during a difficult time. I could feel the 18-year-old me wanting to throw their words back at them. Either you figure this out on your own, or you find somewhere else to stay. How satisfying it would be to use their exact ultimatum. Instead, I took a deep breath. "I cannot offer what you are asking," I said carefully. "But I can help you find a solution." Their faces fell, hope deflating visibly. "Not a blank check," I continued, "and not an indefinite stay at my home. But I can help arrange temporary housing while you get back on your feet. I can connect Jake with some contacts who might have entry-level positions, and I can help navigate options for Dad's medical care." "You would do that?" "After everything?" my mother asked. "I am not doing it to erase the past," I clarified. "What happened between us changed me forever. But holding on to anger serves no purpose now." My father looked down at his hands. "We made mistakes." He admitted, perhaps the first time he had ever acknowledged fault in his life. Yes, I agreed simply. You did. And I have spent a decade building a life where those mistakes cannot hurt me anymore. That will not change. In the weeks that followed, I arranged for them to lease a small apartment with the first 6 months paid. I helped my father apply for assistance programs for his medical needs. I connected Jake with a former colleague who needed an office assistant, emphasizing this was a one-time favor that Jake would need to maintain through his own efforts. I set clear boundaries from the beginning. This was not a return to family as it once was. This was not unlimited support or forgiveness without accountability. This was measured compassion from a position of strength, not obligation. Jessica accompanied me on my second visit, a symbolic statement that my future family would always take precedence over the past. She watched with quiet pride as I maintained firm boundaries, while still offering practical support. "Your heart is bigger than their mistakes," she told me, as we drove back to Seattle. "That is why I love you." The healing process with my family has been slow and conditional. We will never have the easy relationship some families enjoy. There will always be the shadow of that ultimatum between us. But there is a certain peace in knowing I broke the cycle of conditional love and financial manipulation. When Jessica told me she was pregnant, my first thought was how different our child's life would be from my own. Our son or daughter would grow up understanding that love does not come with price tags or ultimatums. That family supports each other's dreams equally. That boundaries and self-respect are not selfish but necessary. I no longer carry anger toward my parents or Jake. What would be the point? They lost far more than I did in the end. But I do not forget either. Forgiveness does not require forgetting, just as helping does not require erasing boundaries. If there is one thing this decade-long journey has taught me, it is that you can write your own story regardless of how it begins. The ultimatum that was meant to control me actually set me free to discover my own strength, to build my own definition of family, and to learn the difference between sacrifice and self-destruction. Now I want to ask you in the comments, have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family obligations and your own well-being? What boundaries have you established in your family relationships? Please like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the family you choose can be just as meaningful as the one you were born into.